Is it 6 yet? Almost. Then I was thinking, oh, there's a time change. Maybe he got the wrong time, because are you on Central Time?
I'm on Central Time, but I'm in Maryland right now.
Ah, okay. So you already had dinner.
Yes. I'm at this hotel I've never stayed at before and found this awesome diner, mom and pop diner right next door.
That's perfect.
That's a perfect find for me. I love those places.
That is for sure. So we have a nice crowd tonight. This is amazing. You are drawing in the people, Matt.
I hope so.
Yeah, this is great.
Oh, everyone's telling where they're from and stuff. That's cool.
Yeah, we'll record the chat too. And a lot of coaches. That's awesome.
Yeah, will I be able to share my screen okay?
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah, let me share my screen, please. Thank you.
You are going to be co-host. All right. I almost forgot to do that. All right, you should be good.
Great, thank you.
All right, we're going to get started, everyone, because I have a really long introduction for Matt because he's done so much. That's the unfortunate thing. The older you get, the longer your bios get. But bear with me because everything he has done has been amazing. Dr. Matthew Burns is a professor of special education and director of the Center for Collaborative Solutions for Kids, Practice, and Policy, known as SCIP. He's a prolific researcher, published over 200 articles and book chapters and 12 books, but is dedicated to positively influencing practice in K-12 schools and mentoring the next generation of thought leaders in education. As one of the leading researchers regarding the use of assessment data to determine individual or small group interventions, Dr. Burns works closely with schools to study and implement response to intervention models, intensive reading and math interventions, school-based teams, and generally supporting students with and without disabilities whose needs are not met. Dr. Burns was also a practicing school psychologist and special education administrator before becoming an academic, and served on the faculty of the University of Minnesota for 10 years and Central Michigan University for 5 years. His interventions for children, his areas of expertise are interventions for children and youth with learning disabilities and other significant reading and math needs, promoting school success through school-wide multi-tiered systems of support, such as response to intervention and school-based teams, and problem-solving teams and professional learning communities. I will also add he's a heck of a moderator for our Science of Reading What I Should Have Learned in College Facebook group. And without further ado, Dr. Burns.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much, Donna, for letting me be part of this and to be able to help host this fun conversation. I'm so honored to be part of the Facebook group. It's been one of my most rewarding professional activities, and I've learned so much from it. I've learned so much as a professional, how to communicate with practitioners better, but I learned content. Boy, the stuff that reading teachers think about on a day-to-day basis, like some people post a question, like, I never thought about that. Like, how do you code that word? How do you map that word? Like, I never thought about that. So it's been really fun to learn even that as well. So I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to share my screen. So I thought we would do is I could walk through like the presentation. I have a video I'll show you. I won't show the video. I'll give you reference to the video in a second. And this is being recorded as well. But I'll walk through kind of the steps of a class-wide intervention and tell a little bit of the background, some of the research around it. But I want to keep it relatively short. I won't talk for a whole hour. So there's lots of time for questions and conversation. I will keep my eye on the chat. I love that everyone's putting in there where they're from, what they teach, what they do. That's fantastic. People from all over the country. It's really great. Let's see. And so yeah, keep that coming. But if you think of a question, someone from Australia, that's awesome. Jackie from Central Missouri. I'm from Central Missouri, but I'm sitting in Maryland right now. So This is great. So if a question comes up, don't hesitate to throw it in the chat. I'll try and keep an eye on that. And at the end, we'll try and save lots of time for talking and conversation and questions as well. Okay. All right. So we're talking today about class-wide interventions. Now, I have to tell you, my history around this is kind of an interesting one. It started in 2003. In 2003, my colleague Amanda Vanderheiden and I met her at this conference, and she was talking about class-wide interventions for math. I'd never heard of such a thing. So she showed me her data, and her data were pretty cool. And she and I started publishing on this. And I sort of became, obsessed with class-wide interventions. Now, until I didn't have to. When I was in Minnesota, at the University of Minnesota, we had data that looked like this quite a bit, right? This probably looks familiar to everyone who's a teacher. You do your screening via Dibbles, Acadians, or whatever system you use, and you get a color-coded, and you get your data back, and you're all excited, and they look like this. It's a lot of red and green, and it's not December, right? It's not Christmas. So a lot of red and green usually is not a good thing. So when we see this, a couple of things automatically kick in. Now, when I was in Minnesota, I was the co-director of the Minnesota Center for Reading Research. Oh, by the way, this is the video I mentioned. So I have a YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and just search Matthew Burns, I come up, I'm one of the first ones. I have a bunch of videos on there. And some of the videos are demonstration of interventions. Us with a kid or a couple of people demonstrating how to do this intervention. Some are conversations with researchers. So if a cool article comes out, I think, oh, this is a great article. I want practitioners to be able to read this and have access to it and understand it. So if that happens, I'll call the authors and do a quick 15-minute interview and have them explain it for teachers, basically. And then I'll video that and throw it on my YouTube channel. And then the last thing is every now and then I put a few presentations like this. So there's one here on this for class-wide interventions for reading. And there's one for math too, but that's on my YouTube channel. So Google or go to YouTube, search Matthew Burns, and I come up. But when I was at the University of Minnesota, I was co-director of the Minnesota Center for Reading Research. I was in educational psychology, and Lori Hellman, my colleague, who was my other co-director, was in curriculum and instruction. And we worked together. We were our co-directors. It was wonderful. She was the gen ed. I was the special ed psych person. We worked together a lot. We had a great partnership. And while we were working together, we literally in our office got a phone call from Target Corporation. Target in Minneapolis, headquartered just down the road. Target called us up and said, at the time, Target was giving away $3 million a week in charitable contributions. And they were giving it to things like, cultural things, theaters, museums, but they wanted to focus on literacy. And they said, we don't know how to focus on literacy. And they asked Lori and me, will you help us with this? We're like, yes, we'll help you spend $3 million a week. Heck yes. So we started meeting with them and we bounced our ideas with them. And it was really great. And they said to us, okay, you know what? What would it look like? What would it look like, a program look like in which every kid was literate by end of third grade? So Lori and I took Jennifer McComas from special ed and the Minnesota Reading Corps and a few other people and got together and wrote a program. And we went down to Target headquarters and they said, we did the presentation in Target headquarters. I mean, come on, think of the most comfortable chair you have. Usually you sit in a conference room and they have those little uncomfortable chairs with those cloth backs. And these were full-on loungers, and the technology made our smart boards look like chalkboards. It was amazing. So we did this presentation and they said, this is great. How much would it cost? And we told them. And they cut us a check, said, here, go do it. So we built this system in Minneapolis Public in 6 schools, tested it, built it. It was great. They gave us $8 million to do this over 3 years. That was the best thing I've ever had in my career. I got a check for $8 million. I didn't have to really write the grant. They gave it to us. They called us. So we developed this program that we called PRESS, Path to Reading Excellence in School Settings. And it's based largely on interventions and individualized interventions for kids. Now, when we first started working with them, what we saw was, we'd see situations like this. Now let's see. In this classroom, I've got 23 kids. So in this classroom of 23 kids, we got one, two, my cursor's no way I got to move it. There we go. Get that out of the way. There we go. So we have out of the 23 kids, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 of the 23 kids are scoring low on the benchmark. We used Ames Web. 12 of the 23 kids were low on that benchmark. So when you see that happen, can you pull 12 out of 23 kids and run a small group intervention? You know what? We could. We had $8 million. I had an army of research assistants. I had doc students in school psychology, special ed, and curriculum and instruction. And I had an army at my disposal. So if I saw 12 out of 23 kids needing support, we went, go do it. And it was great. During the intervention time, the kids were doing great. We're monitoring progress, graphing it, and they were all doing really well. Then we discovered at the next benchmark assessment, the number of kids, although during the intervention, the kids were looking great, the number of kids who scored proficiently, the percentage of kids who scored in the proficient range didn't go up. And we panicked. We said, what did we do? We have $8 million. This has to work. What did we do? So I started thinking about it and realized, oh my gosh, in 2003, Amanda taught me this, classified intervention. I've been doing this for at the time, 10 years. I got drunk on resources. I let things slip. So we went back to the drawing board and came up with the class-wide approach. And what we do is this. We compute the class median. Talk about that in a second. I don't care what your screener is. Dibbles, Acadians, Ames Web, STAR, NWA MAP, whatever. Whatever your screener is, get the class median. Now, all those ones I just listed, I think, will give you a class median. Don't look at the average, look at the median. Because the average, all it takes is a couple kids, in this case, reading 200 words a minute, and your average gets thrown way off. Median is not as susceptible to outliers. So I take the class median, compare your median to the standard, the benchmark standard. In this case, the median was 87. The winter benchmark, we did this in the winter, was 91. If the median is below whatever the standard is for that assessment for that time period, in this case, 91 for the winter, you have a class-wide need. You have a bunch of low kids, a bunch of kids who just are scoring low. Why? I don't really know. And there's lots of reasons why. We could certainly hypothesize, but all I care about right now is we have a group of kids whose needs are not being met. When we see that happen, we do a couple of things. First of all, we get our, and as I mentioned, here's letter sound fluency. In kindergarten, their median was 14. The criterion was 20. The median is below the criterion. We have a class-wide need. Class median is just the middle score. I know everyone knows how to do that. Just if your system doesn't report it for you automatically, just rank order the kids and pick the middle score. So in this case, there were 21 kids. So I want there 10 above and 10 below. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 10 here. So the middle score with 10 above and 10 below, same number above and below, 92. The benchmark criterion was 101. We have a class-wide need. If it's an even number, just rank order the kids and pick the two middle and take the average of those two. An even number, so we got 10 here, 10 here. 62 is the average of these two. The median is 62. The benchmark criterion is 90. We have a class-wide need. I'll save you some work. If your median, if your middle scores are all in the red or yellow, you have a class-wide need. We have a class-wide need. So when you see that happen, we go back to the basics. All right, so I'm gonna get my PLCs, and I'm gonna get my PLCs looking at a couple of resources. The first one's going to be, well, not necessarily the first one, but one of the things I use quite a bit is Hattie's book, Visible Learning. Now, there are certainly complaints and some criticisms of Hattie's methods. John Hattie, Hattie. John Hattie has taken 800 meta-analyses and synthesized them into just one book that shows what it comes, what you look at all the research comes down to one point. Yeah, I agree, Donna. There's certainly criticisms of it and they're legitimate, but for the most part, that's a useful tool for practitioners. So, and I like how he puts it as as the zone of desired effect. You got this sites here that, if it's in this area, that's a good effect. Now, his criterion for that's a little low. I'd like a little higher, but that's okay. Then what he calls teacher effects, which is, it's a positive. It's not huge, but it's a positive. Developmental effects, which means you would see that if you did nothing. If the effect is in this range, if it's not negative, but if you did nothing, you'd probably see that. And then reverse effects, dangerous effects, things that actually make things worse. So when you look at whole language programs, the average effect size is in this developmental effect, 0.06. There's 64 studies, 197 effects, 630 people. It's what he called the developmental effect, basically zero, really no effect. Whereas phonics instruction is in what he called zone of desired effect, 425 studies, 6,000 effects, 12,000 people, we see positive effects. So I'm going to get my PLCs looking at the John Hattie book and talking about this and how does your research or your instruction align with these two approaches. And then we can even look at other approaches with more, so here's repeated reading, positive effect, 54 studies, lots of good effect there. Teaching kids explicit instruction and main idea, vocabulary, inferencing, large effect. Again, 400 studies for that. So let's look at the research and see how is our instruction aligning to what the science shows to be effective, and how is it aligned to what the science shows is not effective. So let's stop doing those things. And then he summarized it as two roles. He said teachers are either activators or something else. Talk about in a second. So an activator is things like drill and practice, feedback, metacognition, direct instruction, mastery learning, formative assessment, all positive effects, all in that zone of desired effect. Effects some really strong effects with an overall effect of 0.6, which is in that zone of positive effect. Now, compare that to what he calls facilitator, games, inquiry-based learning, smaller class size, problem-based approaches, inductive teaching, all small effects, overall effect of 0.17, which is certainly in that developmental effect, no effect. So he looks at it as you can be a teacher that's an activator or a facilitator. And he would argue activator is more effective. So again, let's start looking at this and talking about which one we do. So that's the first thing I'm doing. I'm gonna get my PLCs looking at that. Secondly, I'm going to go to the IES Practice Guide website. Google this right here, IES Practice Guide. If you haven't seen these yet, they are wonderful. Google IES Practice Guide, and it comes up. It's a series of books. They're not books, they're PDFs. They're brief, like 30 pages. And what the IES, Institute for Education Science, which is the branch of the Department of Education that deals with research, they get together researchers around a particular topic, and they'll talk about, what's the research say? And then they write recommendations for practice based on the research, like 4 or 5 recommendations, and they're written for practitioners. They're good. They're all free PDFs. I've shown you one on adolescent literacy. There's one on struggling readers. There's one on teaching. There's lots of them. Go to that website, and there's all kinds of opportunities to look and see what, there's lots of opportunities for free PDFs around some important topics. So if we see a classified need, and we're going to look at the research, and then we're going to look at these practice guides, and I want my teams to pick 1 or 2. I want my teams to pick 1 or 2 of these recommendations that work for them and they think will help their kids, and then let's get that one implemented. So we're going to look at the research in general and see how our instruction fits, and we're going to look at some research-based recommendations and see which one we think would work, help our kids the most, and we're going to start it. But those 2 things are going to take time. We also are going to start a class-wide intervention. Now, the class-wide intervention I'm going to talk about today is based on PALS, Peer-Assisted Learning Strategies. If you're not familiar with it, I highly recommend it. It's well-developed, it's cheap, it's easy, it's well-researched. It's at the Vanderbilt University. You can simply, there's the link, or just Google PALS Vanderbilt, and you'll find it. But there's a K-PALS for kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd through 5th, middle school, high school, and they're great. Now, they're easy to do. If you can read, you can do it. I love them. They're great interventions. If you have a whole class, a class-wide need, that's a great thing to look at. So if we see a class-wide need, we're going to get this. Now, When we saw classified needs, we saw all these kids having problems and the number of kids scoring proficient didn't go up. And I went, oh gosh, what have I done? We classified intervention, duh. So I went and bought a copy of PALS for all the teachers. And we said, here, do this. And the teachers all said, with one exception, one group of teachers all said, no, I'm not doing this. It takes 20, 30 minutes a day, at least, if not 40 minutes for 26 weeks. And they in essence kind of refused, with one exception. The one exception was the kindergarten teachers. I love kindergarten teachers. They're the best. I don't know how many of you are kindergarten teachers on this call, but when they saw this, they're like, wow, this looks really good. We'll try it. And they did. And I've never had a kindergarten teacher tell me no to this. And I've done it in lots of them now. It's super easy. If you can read, you can do it. So I tend to use K-PALS for kindergarten. Now, I'm Hurlock Elementary here in Dorchester County Public Schools, which is where I'm at right now. They have some kids, and they were saying, wow, our first graders, we think they would benefit from K-PALS. Can we do kindergarten PALS in first grade? Yeah, so they're doing K-PALS, and it's working really well. I mean, it's going really well, I should say. So I use kindergarten K-PALS, first grade PALS. 2nd through 8th grade, I do what I'm about to show you now. 9th grade, high school, I still use high school PALS. So I use K-PALS, first grade, high school. Everything else in between, I do what I'm about to show you. So when the teacher said, no, we're not doing that, we panicked again, went back and said, okay, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? What really matters for PALS? Well, we think what really matters for PALS is the paragraph shrinking and the partner reading, paragraph shrinking. Let's peel everything else off and just do that. So we went to our teachers and said, here, do this. It's about 20 minutes a day. Do it for 2 weeks. Do it for 10 school days. We'll come back in 10 days. We'll talk to you. We'll sit down. We'll assess the kids. We'll see how it went and figure out what to do next. So some of the teachers said, sure, we'll try it. So we built this system based on PALS. So K-PALS for kindergarten. First grade was still largely first grade PALS. This was 2nd through 3rd. We now replicated this and built it through 5th grade and then in middle school. But we did partner reading. So the first thing we do is create dyads. So this is just straight from PALS. We take the classroom and cut it in half. And then when you fold it, but you don't fold it so the lowest of the lows with the highest of the high, you slide it. So I'm sorry to use this low high language. Sorry about that. But for this demonstration, it's kind of just easier. I've got 2 groups. I've got these kids who have the striving readers, if you will, the lower readers, and then the higher readers. I'm going to take the lowest kid here and put that kid with this kid, the lowest kid in the high group. And then I'm going to take the second lowest kid in the low group, put that with the second lowest kid in the high group, all the way down until the highest of the low with the highest of the high. Okay, so there's heterogeneity. Research has shown that homogeneous grouping is great because it's easy to group kids and deliver interventions addressed to their specific needs. Heterogeneous grouping helps to have a good model and a good role model, and we see more growth among the struggling readers. So heterogeneous grouping is not a bad thing. In this case, I would argue it's essential. So we create these dyads, and we say, okay, kids, partner reading time. And so we have dyad A, the first dyad is student A and student K, and then student B and student L, and all the way down to student J and student U. Okay, so we create these dyads. All right. So I use CBM to do this. There's nothing magical about CBM. It's an effective screener, quick, easy tool. But there's other approaches. Whatever screener you're using, rank order the kids, create these dyads. Now, some teachers will look at this and say, what about student U? That kid's so high. I don't want that kid doing this class-wide intervention. I respond to that a couple ways. Number one, I need good readers. This won't work without good readers. I need the role models. I need these good readers to be part of it. One. Number two, I'll show you data in a minute. The highest readers are the ones that usually grow the most. I'll show you data to support that in a second. But number three, I can accept that there are some kids who are so high that this is probably not a good use of time. So for those kids, we do one of two things. We either say, okay, we're going to take student U and make that kid our pinch hitter. He's our assistant. So if any kid is missing, student U fills in for the absent kid and automatically becomes reader one. Okay, we don't know what reader one means yet. I'll talk about that in a second. Or you can take that kid and do enrichment. So teachers have said, I'm looking for time to build in to help kids who are really high to do more enrichment activities. And You can do that during this time. I don't know what to do. Good readers make no sense to me. I don't know what to do with those kids. Student U, I don't know what you do for enrichment, but whatever it is you do, you could do that during this time. But I would really encourage you to have those really good readers be part of this. It'll make it more effective. Okay, so you create a dyad. And every dyad, student A, student K, student B, student L, gets a folder. And on the folder, we write the name of the dyad. You know, dyad 1, dyad 2, dyad T-Rex, dyad whatever, team, whatever. Don't say dyad, say team. Team A, team B, team C, team 1, team 2, team 3, team, purple dinosaur. I don't care, whatever you want to call it. And then we write on there reader 1, reader 2. So reader 1 is always, always, always the better reader. Reader 1 is always, always, always the stronger reader. So in this dyad of student K and student A, reader 1 is student K, reader 2 is student A. In this dyad of student L and student B, I know I was going to do that. Student L and student B, reader 1 is student L, reader 2 is student B. In this dyad, student J and student U, reader 1 is U, and reader J is reader 2. So talk about 85th percentile for enrichment. Sure, I think that's fine. That's probably a fine criterion. That's a little low for me, but that makes perfect sense. But I usually try to limit it to 1 or 2 kids per classroom at the most. Okay. I see someone else post a fairly lengthy question, Priscilla, so I'll try and answer that by the end. Okay. All right, so then we create these dyads. Then every dyad gets this folder, reader 1, reader 2. Reader 1, the stronger reader, reader 2, the lower reader. Now, in that folder, once you open it up, on one side of them, one pocket is a whole bunch of passages written at reader 2's instructional level. It's really important, reader 2's instructional level. Now, I don't love leveling systems. I think they're pretty bad, and I think they're actually kind of bad for kids. Having said that, I do think there's benefit in having a level or a reading material that kids can read. You just can't get too hung up on the level, that's all. So I use Lexile. I don't have time to explain my issues with leveling systems, nor do I have time today to talk about what we should do instead. So, but for today, I use Lexile, and Lexile is close enough. For this activity, Lexile, what we're about to do, Lexile is close enough. So I get a bunch of passages at reader 2's Lexile. So if the Lexile is 350, I'll get some passages from 250 to 350. So 300 to 400, somewhere, just kind of approximating that Lexile. Has to be at reader 2's instructional level. So I just take the Lexile, find a bunch at that passage, at that level. And I go to readworks.org. Now, readworks.org, I like it for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's free, which is awesome. Number two, it's got tons of passages. And number three, it's you can sort them by Lexile, by topic, by type, etc. Now, there are problems with some of those passages, those readworks.orgs. I don't use readworks.org probably the way that they have a program. I don't use the program, but I love the passages. So go on there, find them, find the ones that fit that Lexile. And Glinda, I'm glad readworks works for you. I think it's a fabulous resource. It's free. That's the best part. It's all free. Go there, download the passages, and put the ones at reader 2 in the folder. Now, I've tried using books. I've tried all kinds of things. Books, it's so hard to make books work for what I'm about to show you. Decodables are not bad if they're long enough. If they're you can use them, sure, certainly, if they're long enough and represent an appropriate challenge for reader 2, yes. But I have to be fairly long, and I'll tell you why I say that in just a minute. Which is why I like readworks as well. So I go and get a bunch of them at reader 2's instructional level, but then look through them, make sure they're not too narrative, make sure there's enough text, just look to see if is it a good reading passage, basically. And I put a bunch of those in the folder. All right, and we say, okay, kids, partner reading time or buddy reading time with the little kids. And they have jobs. Reader 1, their job is to go pick the folder up, sit down, and they read first. Reader 2, their job is to read second, and then they put everything away. And we just tell them that's their job. There's no arguing about it. We just picked who reader 1 is, who reader 2 is. Reader 1 picks it up, they go first. Reader 2 goes second, they put it away. End of discussion, that way it's faster. They don't need to know reader 1 is the better reader. And they'll know it among their dyad, but they don't need to know that's why we picked it. Okay, kids, partner reading time. Reader K goes and picks up the folder. Then reader A in this dyad, reader 2, they go and find a place to work. Sit down, and they begin the activity. So our procedure is this. We have 4 steps to it. They open up the folder, pull it out. Reader 1 always goes first. Okay, reader 1 is the model. Reader 1 is the stronger reader. It's written at reader 2's instructional level. They should have no problem with it. Stronger reader reads out loud for 5 minutes while the lower reader follows along. Now, we tried one passage where they look at it together, but I think it works better if each have their own. So the first part of it is fluency building. They read for 5 minutes while reader 2 follows along. As soon as they're done, okay, reader 2, your turn. Now they read the exact same text for 5 minutes. So they do fluency building. Partner reading is fluency building. That's 10 minutes. Then 5 more minutes. Okay, kids, partner, you reader 1, your turn again. Now reader 1 goes back and reads out loud for 5 minutes while reader 2 follows along. But after every paragraph, there's 2 things that are different. After every paragraph, they stop and do paragraph shrinking. Explain that in a second. Also, what's different about this section is that this is no longer repeated reading. This is no longer fluency building. This is comprehension. So the text has to be novel, has to be new. So if the first part of it, they read the first, one page 1, and then they reread page 1. The second part of, okay, reader 1, your turn. Now they pick up where they left off. So they might start on page 2. And let's say they read half of page 2. Okay, time's up. Reader 2, your turn. They pick up where reader 1 left off. So they would pick up on the second half of page 2. So it's 5 minutes, fluency building. Reader 1, reader 2, repeated text. Then 5 minutes, reader 1, reader 2, new text each time. Paragraph shrinking after every time. Fluency, comprehension. And then do paragraph shrinking. Paragraph shrinking is a challenge for some kids, but it's a really cool idea. Again, right from PALS. They read the paragraph and they stop and think, what's the most important who or what? What's the most important thing about that who or what? And gotta say all that in 10 words or less. Okay, a 10-word summary, a 10-word message, a 10-word, they have to see it all in 10 words or less. So they go, let's see, the most important who or what is Thomas Edison. I think the most important thing about the who or what was Thomas Edison grew up on a farm. But he didn't like living on a farm. He wanted to work with machines. Okay, say all that in 10 words or less. Thomas Edison didn't like farming. He liked working with machines. That's it. And we literally have the kids put their fingers down. And it really seems to work pretty well. Anytime I've ever tried to have the kids do something different, like do tally marks or something like that to keep track of the 10 words, they always just ignore it and put their fingers down, even in 8th grade. So putting the fingers down for the 10-word summary is totally fine. Some of the younger grades especially will struggle with this at first. You have to model it. So I'll model it the first 2 or 3 days. I'll project a passage onto the smart board or whatever it is you use, and I'll read it out loud. And I'll say, let's see, the most important who or what is whatever it is. And the most important thing about the who or what is whatever it is. And then the model saying it all in 10 words or less. Okay, following chat. Some assigned places, that's great. It reminds me of 6-minute solutions. Yeah, it's repeated reading. So all those repeated reading programs that have something in common with this. So while we're doing this, while reader 1 is reading, reader 2 is following along. And then we switch as reader 2 is reading, reader 1 is following along. So if they come to a word they don't know, the other reader has to correct them. And we teach them how to go like this, teach them to stop. That word is, and they say the word. Good. Now go back and read that line again. So stop. That word is house. What word? House. Good. House. Now go back and read that line again. We teach them that standard error correction, which I think is actually a really important part of the process. These are passages written at reader 2's instructional level. So there shouldn't be too many problems with having errors. If there is, if it's reader 2, reader 1's a stronger reader, they probably know them. If neither kid knows the word, they raise their hand. Teacher comes over, but the teacher still does this. Oh, okay, that word is whatever, tree. What word? Tree. Good, tree. Now go back and read that sentence again. Okay, standard error correction. So we, generally speaking, run it like this. we collect pretest data. That's I'll talk about that later, but that's probably not something you're going to do too much of. And chances are your benchmark assessment is your pretest. Okay. So day one, we train the kids how to set up the procedures, how to do partner reading, how to do error correction, and how to pick up your folder. We practice the procedure of getting the folder, even through 8th grade. We practice the procedure of getting the folder. And we practice it a couple of times. It should be really fast, less than a minute for sure, without the kids hurrying. Day two, we start paragraph shrinking. So day one is get the folder. Here's how to do partner reading. Here's how to do error correction. Day two, review that plus hit how to do paragraph shrinking. Then day 3 through 10, we're up and running. Now we usually have to reteach paragraph shrinking at least 2 times, at least 2 or 3 times. So usually, day 2, 3, and 4, we're doing modeling paragraph shrinking. And my scientific criterion is I keep modeling it until I see the kid get it. That's my scientific criterion. Now, remember, this is a tier 1 intervention. This is a classified intervention. There's always going to be kids for whom this isn't effective. There's always going to be kids who don't get it'll take more time to get the paragraph shrinking. That's okay. Get it set up. You can go work with those kids while it's running. While it's running, the teacher walks around and supports kids and helps them. The teacher's job is to walk around and do occasional error correction and maybe take notes as they walk around, take notes and see what their kids are doing and that type of thing. It's better off if the teacher enables the kids, turns it over to the kids, so they're the ones running it. Sometimes it's really hard for teachers to do that. I kept seeing teachers stopping them and doing vocabulary I had to tell them, don't. I know it's hard to tell a teacher not to teach, but don't. The more time you spend, going over vocabulary, whatever it is you're doing that good teachers do is time taken away from reading during this quick intervention. So teachers have to be there to support the kids when they don't know how to do it. Found this paragraph, shrinking in panels. Oh, awesome, thank you. And then, I can't. Oh, for middle school students, yeah, I use, so I'll come back to that really, really, really low kids, but we use this in middle school all the time, but occasionally you get really low kids. We'll come back to that in a few minutes. So we said to our teachers, run this for 10 school days. We'll come back and collect post-test data. Now I'm going to show you that post-test data, but I want to give a second here and make sure there are any questions on what we did. So K-PALs, kindergarten, first grade PALs, high school PALs. And then all the rest, we create these dyads, reader 1, reader 2, reader 1's a stronger reader, 5 minutes of partner reading, reader 1 first, reader 2 second, and then 5 minutes, novel text with paragraph shrinking, reader 1, reader 2. So we went to our teachers and said, you know what, just do this for 10 days. Do it for 2 weeks. We'll see what happens. We'll come back. We'll sit down with you. We'll talk to you, see how it went, and we'll collect data and see how it worked. So we did. And we came back in 2 weeks. The first time we did it was in 3rd grade. And we looked at the medians. Remember, the criterion was 91. Before we did anything, the medians in these 2 first classrooms was 81 and 87. After doing the intervention, 2 weeks, it went up to 104 and 115, way above our criterion. We did not expect that. Well, wow, that's pretty good. Well, now let's look and see which kids need help. Remember, there was 12 out of 23. And now we're down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. We talk all the time at MTSS, 80% proficient, 20% need support. I can't say never. I have almost never walked into a building in which 80% of the kids were proficient in reading and 20% weren't. 20% needed help. After we did our classified intervention, there's 23 kids here. What's 20% of 23? Well, 4.6. I'll go ahead and round up since you can't have a 0.6 kid. 20% of 23 is 5. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got that. We've got roughly that. Now, to be clear, this is a Band-Aid. It's a good approach. It's quick, it's efficient, it works well, it's effective. But I'm in the meantime, while we're doing this, having my teachers look at the IES practice guide, having my teachers look at John Hattie's visible learning book and talking about what, is their instruction aligned with research. And I'll get them looking at good effective practice. Yeah, we'll do all that. And that's important because this is just a quick Band-Aid and we want to change instruction for our kids. So both those things are happening at the same time. But now we've got a group of kids we can pull and done effective small groups with. Now, again, just said this number of kids needing help went from 10 out of 20 and 13 out of 23 to 5. We consistently see we get it down to that 20, 25%. So we went to that this first schools in press and said, here, do this, do partner reading, paragraph shrinking, or KPALs. And half the teachers roughly said, okay, sure, we'll try it. Half of them said no. So we had a little bit of a control group. Like, all right, fine, let's see what happens. Now we did this in the winter. The first 2 weeks of winter, after the first 2 weeks of January into probably realistically, it was probably middle of February by the time the intervention was done. So by the spring, this is the growth from winter to spring in the benchmark assessments in the DIBELS, or AIMSWeb in this case. Whoops, it's being really touchy thing. So the blue line right here, the blue bar, is how much they went up from fall to winter on average. Or winter, spring. The red bar is how much they were supposed to go up. And you can see all of these went up at a rate that far exceeded their criteria, their growth, their norms. Now, the classrooms where they said, no, we still don't want to do it. The blue is how much they went up, and the red is how much they were supposed to grow. So for our kids, the gap between good reader and struggling reader got smaller. But for the classrooms that said, we're still not going to do it, the gap got bigger. They grew at a rate that was not as expected. We've done this a number of times. We've done good random assignment. Katie Mackey and led a team, and we looked at the rate of a random assignment, good experimental control group, and a randomized control approach, and still saw that the control group, the experimental group, did way better than the control group. I just saw a chat. Let me go back to that. I used the oral reading fluency this is from AIMSWeb, but DIBELS, Acadians, it all works just as well. Did the spring benchmark beta still maintain the 80-20? I think I took those data out, Angela, and I'm sorry I did, because yes, it did. Now, don't get too excited about that. I can't promise you that the reason it stayed high was because we did this 2-week intervention, because I don't know what happened after we're done. Every single time we've done this, so Kelly did this sustain over time, I'm telling you it did, but I'll say this too. Every single time we've done this with teachers, we help them set it up. When we finish, they say, this is easy. Can I keep doing it? Well, yes, of course. I can tell them no, but it doesn't matter. I'm still going to do it. And besides, you want what's best for kids. So yeah, sure. So I don't know what happens after we leave. I don't know if they just stop. I don't know if they do it, 3 times a week or twice a week instead of 5 times a week. I don't know if they do it 4 times a week, but they don't do paragraph shrinking. I have no idea what they do. So Kelly and Angela, I can't really say for sure. While yes, the growth maintained, I can't tell you that the causality of it was the intervention. And keep in mind too, by the way, the kids, once we fixed that Band-Aid, we started tier 2 interventions. So that started too. And we also, I will show you a couple more sets of data real quickly. So we had a school in Missouri that was close by where I lived, and they wanted to try this in 4th and 5th grade. But I've only ever done it K3. Well, they want to try it 4th and 5th. All right, fine. So we build it. Well, the day before we're supposed to start, literally the night before, I get a phone call on my cell at home. It was the principal of the building. I said, Matt, you're not going to believe this. We can't do it. What? Why? We'd already built the folders. We'd already done everything. Supposed to be there in the morning. The principal said, well, I bumped into the superintendent today. I said, hey, we're doing this intervention with Dr. Burns. Isn't this great? And the superintendent told the principal no. Said, nope, in this district, the lowest test score was in science on average. So all of the interventions had to focus on science scores. Okay, if you can't read, you're not going to do well on the state test for science, but different conversation. Okay, fine. So we took the scope and sequence of the science curriculum in 4th and 5th grade, went back to readworks.org, sorted by Lexile, et cetera, but then also sorted by topic. So we found passages that matched what they were talking about in science. Now, the match was sometimes pretty loose, but it was there. And then we did the same thing as I just showed you, except the passages were science passages. That's it. And then we monitored progress with Maze for 2 weeks. Now, Maze, if you know what that is, you omit every 5th word, put in 3 choices, a near miss, a far miss, and the right answer. And as the kids read, they circle the right answer. So we created mazes from science passages. So, I took it out. Shoot, that's okay. So this little blue bar is where these fourth grade classrooms started. The little blue line was how much they're supposed to go up based on national norms. The red bar is how much they actually did go up. Blew it away. Same thing in fifth grade. They started off here. They're supposed to go up there. They went way above it. Worked really well. I went to Buffalo, New York, and first time we did it in a middle school. They heard of us doing this, and so we set this all up. And now there, because it was a middle school, was block scheduling, so it was science one day, social studies the next. So these kids had two sets of folders, one that had science content, one that had social studies content, and they went back and forth every other day, doing it every day. Now, in middle school, so at least this is Buffalo, New York. This is 100% free reduced price lunch. It's a high poverty school. This is probably 95, 90% Black, if not more. In the fourth and fifth grade, it was a Title I school, school-wide title school. It was a high percentage of, like, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, probably 75%. No, probably less than that. Let's say like 60% Black, full 100% close free reduced price lunch. And so when we, so this, Angela, in this example, in this middle school, one day it was science with science passages. The next day it was social studies. And then two sets of folders, same kids, of course. And they just went back and forth. Now, at the middle school, we do 3 weeks. In fact, I would advocate for 3 weeks, fifth grade and above. We did 3 weeks, not 2. And here we did random assignment. Here's the control group. And you see, we saw a nice jump in reading fluency, in 3 weeks, about almost a 20-point jump, about an 18-point jump. And the jump for control school is less than that, maybe 5 points or so. Accuracy was high for both groups, but look at the jump in maze compared to the control groups. Nice gains. As I'm walking into the building, literally fly to Buffalo, New York, I'm carrying these folders. We're walking, I'm chatting to the person I'm walking in with. I'm 10 feet from the door, and she says, "Oh, by the way, we have a lot of emerging bilingual kids, a lot of ELL kids. We have a lot of ELL kids. Does that matter?" Yes, but nothing I can do about it now, right? So we walk in and just do exactly what I just showed you. No change. Again, now look at the nice big jump among the kids who are EL compared to the control group, emerging bilingual. Man, look at that nice jump. And we even saw a jump in accuracy and huge gains in the maze scores as well. Samantha, I do have an example of what the folders look like. And I don't have one on me right now, which is really, I'm really sorry about that. I always carry one with me. I don't know what happened to it. I must have lost it today. So I'll offer a couple things. In the video I just mentioned at the beginning, there's an example there. I will also, if it's okay, take a picture of what it looks like. I won't be today though, unfortunately, and tweet it, or I'll tweet it, yes, but I'll put it on the Science of Reading page as well, on our Facebook page, so you can see a picture of it. So we saw nice big gains. Now, my doc student, Monica Romero, who's fabulous, did her dissertation on this. It's a beautiful study. She took emerging bilingual kids. Now, there's more kids than just emerging bilingual, but I'm only focusing on those data now. Random assignment, and here the control group is not just business as usual. Here, the control group gets a reading fluency intervention. So what they do is the kids sit down, partner reading, and read to each other for 5 minutes. So it's not repeated reading, there's not error correction, there's no paragraph shrinking, but they did do a partner reading fluency activity. So because of that, we saw a little bit of gain in pre-test to post-test for the control, for the experimental group, but the treatment group, I'm saying it backwards. The treatment group did well, but the control group did pretty well too for fluency. We think it's because we had them do this partner reading activity as well. But adding in the paragraph shrinking, the error correction, everything else, saw a big jump in vocabulary. So the kids emerging bilingual saw a nice big jump in vocabulary compared to the control group, and a nice big jump in comprehension compared to the control group. So we saw some really nice effects there. Yeah, this is 2 through 8. We do K-PALS kindergarten, first grade PALS, first grade, high school PALS, high school. Now, we've done, we said lots of research. Monica Romero did her dissertation, turned out beautifully. And she, by the way, she's looking for a job. She's super smart. So if anyone wants to hire her, that'd be great. She does research on how to help kids who are emerging bilinguals with their reading skills. But then, just to point out how easy this is, I made the video, and Lindsay, who is active in this Facebook group as well, I've never met. We communicate by social media. Never met her. Didn't know her before this. I guess she saw the video or something that I have on my YouTube channel and just tried it and saw huge gains. Went from 50 to 66. Tweeted about it. I loved it. It was awesome. That was very exciting. And first of all, I'm excited about this because she was able to show that's easy to do, a little bit of work, and she saw big gains in just 2 weeks. But also, it's such a great example of teachers willing to try things and collect data and see how it went. And she did that great. It's pretty simple to do. I mentioned Hurlock Elementary here in Maryland. I'm working with right today. They set it all up: kindergarten pals, first grade pals, partner reading, paragraph shrinking. It's going wonderfully. Teachers are doing great. The kids are really, really improving. It's looking awesome. And then one more point on the data. Again, these are those kids who were low, and then only 5 were low. But also, if we use the MAP, the Measures of Academic Progress, as a criterion, we see a correspondence of the CBM score, the Ames Web, and the MAP score before classified intervention of about 70%. After classified intervention, went all the way up to 91% correspondence. And think of it like a grade. 70% is passing, but it's not very good. 80% is a B-ish, and then 90%-ish is an A. So we went from like a C- to a solid A-. So nice improved decision making. And when I talk about school screening for dyslexia, I love these. This came up from 48 to 92. That kid is not dyslexic, I promise. This kid went 82 to 113. These kids are not dyslexic. I'm worried about 2 kids on this page. This kid went from 80 to 82. And this kid went from 49 to 47. Those are 2 kids I'm worried about. Everyone else, even this kid here, 13 to 40. Low, stayed low, still needs support. But 27 points in 2 weeks, whew, kid's probably not dyslexic. They're doing pretty darn well. And now let's look at our high kids. Remember our high kids? 122 to 142, 126 to 147, 152 to 161, 143 to 158, et cetera, 142 to 160. One high kid, 141 to 136. Didn't do, that's funny. That's probably student U. I didn't notice that till right now. That's probably student U, the kid I've been talking about. All the rest did really quite well. The high kids really saw nice big jumps. And we see that consistently, by the way. That's not the last time we've seen that. So it's a pretty straightforward intervention. We do partner reading, paragraph shrinking. We do K-PALs, first grade PALs, high school PALs. It's easy to do. We see nice big jumps. So now we flip that triangle right side up. So we have 20% of the kids need support. And that's when we can really dive in and do small group interventions. Most of my email and my Twitter. I think I put my Twitter account. I'm active on Twitter. I'm active on this page, of course. So if you want more information, email me, tweet me. I've got several books on this. I'm happy to those are good resources. The ones that are more intervention focused, as this one, the CBA book, the applications volume 2, I think it is, and then the effective school interventions are all intervention books. But I will stop sharing and go to chat and open up to see if there are any questions. K at first are much different than 2nd through 6th. Thank you, Sam. That is a very important point because it's very true. It looks not completely, but very, very different. K1, those are very phonemic awareness decoding oriented. So it's got almost a completely different focus. And I work with teachers who've never done decoding and teaching before, literally able to pick up K-PALs or first grade PALs and implement it, no problem. Good. Thank you, Allison. Uneven number of students. Yeah. So you can have 3 in a group. I don't love that. So if that's the case, again, I'll take my highest kid and make that kid my pinch hitter. So if there's a kid absent, they fill in. If there has to be, then you can have a group of 3 every now and then. I don't want to have a group of 3 on an ongoing basis. All right, let's see. Let me make this bigger so I can follow the questions. Routines are everything, Sam. Yes, couldn't agree more. Practice it, get the routines down. So Barbara, what adaptations would I make for EL emerging bilingual students? The research we did in Buffalo, the research Monica did, we didn't do any changes, adaptations. We just delivered it as we always do. So I would argue not, but I'm not sure that's the best approach, even though we see nice big jumps. So our next step is to do research and see what adaptation should we do. So that's the next study. It's great when kids working together. It is. I love it. We have kids. One little guy who not a strong reader, and he was, he was reader 2, and a long story. But bottom line is, he got to be reader 1 a couple times, and he was giggling and having fun, and it was really cool to see. You can't have a love of reading if you can't read. So really getting that developed can be a great thing to watch. Okay, middle school kids scoring a BR in Lexile. So this is a tier 1 intervention. We certainly can have some kids for whom we need to start a tier 2 or even tier 3 intervention while this is going on. So that certainly can happen. We also do an intervention called Build a Word, where what we'll basically do is take a decoding intervention and run that with a small group of kids who need support beyond what a partner reading paragraph shrinking would address. So while I talked about the high kids are really, really high, I still would argue the low, there are some low kids. I'm going to try and get those really, really low kids as part of this if we absolutely can. But if they're really, really low, then we may pull them and run a tier 2, tier 3 intervention simultaneous to this. So they would do that instead of getting partner reading. Read works passages are a little more difficult K1. So that's why I use K-PALS and first grade PALS. We don't use the passages K1. We use the PALS materials, which are quite age appropriate and quite great. Second graders who can't decode and read, again, same thing. Yes, you can do a different one for them, but I'm really going to push you to have it be something part of this. So what we can do for them is maybe start with letter sounds, maybe start with word lists if possible, that type of thing. Really basic decoding text. Because remember, they're going to have it read to them first. It's going to be modeled first. But yes, if there are some kids when this is too low, we might take those kids and put them with the first grade PALS instead. So during this time, they might go get first grade PALS down in first grade. Or maybe if I have a whole bunch of second graders who are low, then our classified intervention in second grade still might be first grade PALS. Yeah, that's good. Paragraph shrinking with a partner is also great with grade level material. I've had lots of teachers tell me that I've never studied it. I've never studied 15 words, Harriet. I only ever use 10, so I can't speak to the efficacy of that, but if it works, great. Again, well, for first graders, again, I tend to use first grade PALS, so they don't do paragraph shrinking very often. So Mary Lou, yes, you can extend this beyond 2 to 3 weeks. Every teacher I've known has done that. I would really encourage you to do an assessment. Just do another Ames Lab, just do another Dibbles, another Acadians for 1 minute each kid. So it'll take you 25, 30 minutes total. Sit down and do it one time and see their growth. I think those are important data to have. But certainly you can keep going for beyond 2 to 3 weeks. There's certainly no harm in it. I wouldn't delay intervention, that's all. We don't start tier 2 intervention until this is done. So I wouldn't delay tier 2 intervention beyond 2 to 3 weeks. Does PALS have a meaning? Yeah, I'm sorry, Judith. It's peer assisted learning strategies. Why don't I put that in the chat? I keep saying it in my Midwest accent, sometimes makes it hard to hear. Peer assisted learning strategies. PALS from Vanderbilt. Is for Vanderbilt right now?
Looks good.
Yeah. Okay. Try that word again. The only thing about try that word again is I want to model it for them. If they're self-correct, they're probably going to self-correct before you intervene. So I'm usually almost always going to model. I'm not I do, we do, you do person, right? So I'm always going to be I do. So I would model for them. Grade level. Oh, thank you. Laura, for this decision, I want my fluency reading assessment should be a grade level benchmark assessment. No, I'm sorry, grade level passage. You can use a progress monitoring probe, doesn't have to be benchmark. But yes, I'm going to do a grade level passage, not students instructional level. I have the level has to be the same for every kid to get the median, et cetera. But I'm going to really focus on the grade level, not instructional level. Yeah, build a word, Linda. There's some material out there. If you emailed me, I would send you a protocol on how to do that. And I can put that up in the Facebook group as well. how does the strategy work when children have anxiety, the try again strategy? That's why I model it for them. It makes it a lot easier. Oops, that word is house. What word? House. Good. Now go back and read it again. That's a less anxious thing than, oh, look at that again. What word do you think it is? So, Kelly, if you can't find me, let me know. It's BirdsMK1 on Twitter. Is there a Canadian version? I don't know. Zoe asked if there's a Canadian version of ReadWorks. I don't know. I don't know. I think you could probably go to ReadWorks and pull passages that would probably work for you. I don't know. So, the Facebook I'm mentioning is the Science of Reading, What I Should Have Learned in College. So Karen asked, what is the Facebook group? It's this one. It's the Science of Reading, What I Should Have Learned in College. Multisyllabic words where students read for, oh, I see, Harriet. Thank you for clarifying. Okay, good. It's coming in quickly now. When you say you're not an I do, we do, no, I am. I'm sorry, I am an I do, we do you person for this program in general. No, I'm sorry if I said that incorrectly. I do quite a bit of work with explicit and direct instruction. I'm all about, when in doubt, I tell my students, well, if you don't know what else to do, fall back on I do, we do, you do. Just every single time. Yeah, so I'm sorry if I said that incorrectly or if that wasn't clear. Thank you. Okay, that was rapid fire.
All right, I just want to testify, do a testimonial. I was trained in this approach through press. I took press training, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, who knows, and utilized this in both a first grade and a fourth grade classroom. And it's a game changer for kids. And the teachers love it too. So, and super, super easy to do. So if you want to know more about that, I think, is that press still available? You can still.
Oh, yeah. Google Path, actually Google Press, I'll put it in chat, Press, MCRR, Press, MCRR. Put Google that and it'll come up. It used to be free because we had a grant, but then we created this intervention manual. I think it's $100 a year to belong to the website. And I don't get money, I don't get any royalties for it, which is a decision I've regretted so many times. But anyway, it's a web-based program that has interventions, tier 1 approaches, videos, assessments. It's pretty great. I think.
Well, it is very good, and it's not just for this type of reading, just for fluency. There's all kinds of other interventions you can use, and it tells you how to map your kids. If they're here doing this, then you do this. It's got all flow charts in there. It was really well done.
And Laura just asked, I was typing about to say it. She said, press materials say it's K5. Can be used in middle school kids. Yeah, we built it for middle school, and Press has a whole separate middle school program now.
It's very good. Matt, I could listen to you all night. You've got such great ideas and you've been in the trenches, so we all appreciate that. So we're going to have you back, okay?
I hope so. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. I think we're good. Yep. Okay, very good, everyone. I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you for attending. We had a really good turnout tonight. Over 170 folks. So that's really good.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming. I appreciate you giving me your time on a Monday evening. Thank you.
So what I'll do is this will be uploaded to YouTube. It'll be a public video, and I will also post it on the What I Should Have Learned in College Facebook page. So you can find it there as well. All right. Good night, everyone.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night.